NCAA and the vendetta that it seems to have against Michigan, as well as Buckeye derangement syndrome. We're taking all of the questions you have, and that's what we're going to talk about on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Thank you to all of our everydayers who check us out every single day. And thank you to those of you who make us your first listen. It is the Michigan Mailbag, so we will have the leaders and best, those who have been asking questions dating back to most of them to 2018 when we started the show. Then we're going to go to the victors Valiant, the ones who ask the questions almost every single week. And then the people who are a little bit more infrequent are the Blue Crew, who end up usually being a lightning round. For those watching, we're going single camera today just for the ease of this. Show always takes a lot longer to produce when it comes to the mailbag. And just figured that we would get it out as fast as possible. So with that in mind, let's get to it, starting with the leaders and best. James Crudup at James Crudup 6, top 5 teams you'd like to see Michigan do a home and home with. Number 1 would probably be LSU. I mean, they're all going to be SEC teams, right? Like here's the thing. It would have been Oklahoma and Texas. Thankfully for Michigan, they've got those on the books, right? That's like, if you would have asked me 10 plus years ago, it would have been Oklahoma, then Texas, and then probably LSU, who Michigan's weirdly never played. Excuse me. Then from there, I would so we got LSU. I'll go Georgia. I know they played obviously in the 2021 Orange Bowl. I will go Georgia as my next one. Then I think after that, you know what? I'm going to go ACC for one. I'm going to go Miami. I would love to. I mean, I think that would be so much fun to see Miami, both sides. And I understand Miami maybe not be, I wish Miami was like the team that the documentaries were made about, the 30 for 30s, the cocaine Cowboys era, Hurricanes, but I'll stick with them. I'll go Miami for the next one. Let's see. Who else would I go with? It's kind of a hard question because, like, again, you took 2 teams, go right off of it. And then I'm starting to think about like what some of these other schools are. I'll go Ole Miss because I don't really care about Ole Miss coming to Ann Arbor as much as I want to go to Oxford. That would be a good one. And then after that, again, we're just going to stick SEC for the most part because like I don't really care that much about Clemson. I don't care about a lot of these other schools. I mean, Clemson would be fine. I'm just going to cheat and go Clemson because that's there. And we're not going to spend all day on that one question. James Crudup usually has the longest response of anybody on a week-to-week basis, just because he was the first person to top my list, the first mailbag we did. Anyway, Josh Barr at Jadeke, when Moore sits down, do you think that he will do what Jim did and rotate who is acting head coach for the week or pick a single person to run things the entire time? I think he'll pick a single person if, for no other reason. Like Jim could do that because he'd been a head coach for almost 20 years at that point, right? Well, maybe more. 2 years at San Diego, 4 with Stanford, 4 at with the 49ers. And yeah, it was his 19th year. So he had 9 years in at Michigan. So this is Sherrone Moore's second year. I think he'd be safer. I don't think he needs to be like, hey, let's showcase what guys can do and all of that. Like, I don't think he's as strong of a mentor, not yet, at least, as Jim was at that point. So I think he'd be safest just to pick one guy and run with him. My brother, Metal Michael Wolf at MWolf21, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much is the defense being underrated? I say 6 to 7. I'd say, I mean, you're probably about right on there. People are giving the defense some credence, right? Like, I watched a Chris Ballas on Andy and Ari earlier this morning. And like, he's talking about, they're talking about like, yeah, the defense, like, Andy and Ari, like, yeah, the defense. And they're like, and even Ballas just, they don't seem to have a lot of belief in the offense. Like just the ability of the offense to ever carry the defense right? And I think that's valid. We'll believe it when we see it. But at the same time, I look at it a little bit differently. I look at the offense and say, like, okay, they've got a bona fide offensive coordinator now, right? Like, because keeping in mind, this is something we've talked about. Kirk Campbell was the most experienced offensive coordinator that Michigan had hired since Pep Hamilton. And even then, like, Pep, I can't remember what, I would have to look it up here. This might be a fool's errand here, what I'm doing here. But because I know Pep had some, like, yeah, because Pep was the offensive coordinator at Howard for 3 years. And then he was the offensive coordinator with Stanford and then the Colts before he eventually became the pass game coordinator for Michigan, which was essentially the offensive coordinator. But when you look back, like, Josh Gaddis had never been an offensive coordinator. Sherrone Moore had never been an offensive coordinator. Kirk Campbell had been, but like a lot of the, it seems like Jed Fish had been an offensive coordinator for a little bit of time before he and Tim Drevnos kind of split the duties. So it is kind of interesting just that. And I think just by having a guy who's been an offensive coordinator for decades, that's going to bode really well. Even with a freshman Bryce, that's just worlds better than what they had last year. I know a lot of people are down on the offensive line. I'm not. I know I'm kind of diverting from what your question is, but a lot of people are really, down on it. I think that if nothing else, it will be kind of more the same of what it was near the end of the season. I'm not saying it's going to be consistently like blowing people off the ball, but I think it will be consistently okay. My bigger question is the receivers, but then, Matt McCulley, they really love what he brings. So there's a lot of people who do look at it and say the defense is going to be what carries this team. And the offense, it's like treated as if it's going to just be a smidge better than it was last year. I think it's going to be a lot better than it was last year. And that's going to take a lot of pressure off the defense, which is going to make it even better. So I would even maybe go 7-8 for that reason, because I think last year we didn't necessarily see the defense at its full capability. Now, they had some breakdowns against Texas. They had some breakdowns against Oregon, right? Like, without the offense screwing them over at times, right? Can't get off the field on third down, that kind of stuff. So that's part of it. All right, finishing us out in segment 1 is Spencer Whitmore. At Spencer Whitmore, what away games are you going to this year? Also rank them on excitement. All of them, I believe. I've only missed one away game in the last 6 years. I didn't go to Indiana this year because it was my birthday and I didn't want to. That was that simple. But the last game I had missed, period, was 2018 Rutgers, because Wolverines Wire was a new startup. I did not have the funds to go and cover that game, nor did it seem to make any financial sense, even if I did. So I'm going to all of them. There's a chance I skip USC if like it just feels too overwhelming to fly to the West Coast and back in a single week without a bye week surrounding it. But Oklahoma easily number 1. It's funny because it probably goes almost in order of when they come. Actually, it might be almost exactly that. Oklahoma, Nebraska, USC, and this is where we kind of divert a little bit. Then I would say Maryland, just because I love going to DC. Then Northwestern, and I'll probably enjoy Northwestern more with it being at Wrigley. And then Michigan State. And I'm not even downplaying. I like Michigan State. That's great to go to for the sake of I get to sleep in my own bed the night before and the night of. Right? So, all right, that's going to end segment 1. We are going to answer all of the questions for the Victor's Valiant. We're going to do that here in just a moment. But before we do, ever check your bank account and wonder where did all of my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Makes me wonder sometimes, like, hey, where all this extra money come from? Well, it's because, yeah. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Definitely took way too much time on segment 1. Good luck, people, in segment 3. Anyway, let's get to our victors, Valiant. Starting with Chubbs at Chubbs GB at Talk with Chubbs. With new commits committing, do you think they're being told that they have nothing to worry about as far as postseason bans go? I would venture to say that. And for just one time, and you're actually going to get it more than once, can we get a cheating? There you go. I haven't heard anything, but I would venture to guess that they don't really have any concerns, right? Like, I'm sure yeah. Michigan's at least telling them that they don't believe that there's anything to be concerned about in their shoes. Clark, I'm speculating, by the way, on that. I'm not saying like, oh yeah, I heard from, I'm speculating, but like you would imagine that question's coming up and Michigan has an answer for it. Clark at Blue for Life 8, if Moore is also suspended by the NCAA, would they count the 2 games he's suspended by the university towards that suspension, or would it be in addition to it? No, it would be towards it. That's why they're doing it. They're doing it in hopes, essentially, that the NCAA will say, good enough for us. That's generally how it tends to work. More so in minor situations, right? It didn't work for them with Harbaugh in the 3 games with Burgergate. So but they don't seem to have a vendetta against Sherrone, just against Harbaugh's Michigan, and Harbaugh's no longer there. So we'll find out, eventually what the deal is there. I'm not the one at William Cawthorne 9, even though it's been a short period of time. How do you see Sherrone's trajectory? It's hard to tell. It's too early. I mean, but at the same time, it's him beating Ohio State and Alabama. That's worlds different than like Brady Hoke taking over a Rich Rod established team, basically saying like, okay, we're going to leave the offense intact for the most part and then fix the defense, and then riding that and beating Ohio State in a down year for the Buckeyes, right? They were a 6-win team, and then beating a Virginia Tech team that, frankly, they should have been a lot better than. Virginia Tech was pretty good in that era. It's a lot different to be that kind of middling team that Michigan was last year, to go into Columbus, win on the road against the team that ended up winning the national championship, and then going and playing an Alabama team that was making sure everyone knew that they were out for blood and playing full strength, and then still losing that game, right? So I think that's impressive beyond what we've seen from a lot of other Michigan coaches or even other coaches, right? It's an impressive start, even if there was a lot of unimpressive parts to the season. So it's just too early to tell. Will Michigan ever get the respect it deserves? It's the winningest program in history, yet year after year never get the benefit of the doubt. Probably not. No, I don't think that when it's, I don't want to say probably not, but probably not in this type of era of the world we live in, right? The social media era is different, right? Like I think back to when Entourage came out, Ari Gold says like he went to Michigan, and, E's response is good football team, which is exactly almost how it played out when I was in Las Vegas with my mom, and we were in the cab going back to the airport. My mom says like, oh, my son goes to Michigan, and the cab driver goes, oh, it's a good school, good football team, right? Like I think everyone has an opinion in the social media era on what Michigan is. And some of it's been because the well has been poisoned. Some of it's just because people don't like the, Michigan. When you're the team that tends to win a lot locally, yeah, you might get a lot of fans because of that, but if you're outside of the geographic region and stuff like that, a lot of people are going to hate you just because you win a lot, right? Like, look no further to like Nick Saban, Alabama. And, eventually people are like, what, actually kind of like him now. Bill Belichick, the New England Patriots. It was like, oh, who's these new kids on the block? Then they win a couple, and you're like, all right, I'm getting tired of this. And eventually you're like, you know what? This is actually kind of rooting for them. Sure, it's going to be the same with the Kansas City Chiefs. So like Michigan is not that right now, but they are the winningest. And I think a lot of people are just going to have some kind of, feeling one way or the other about that, right? Best I can say. Looking at the roster, would you say is a clear-cut best player, or do you think there isn't a clear-cut best? I don't think there's a clear-cut best. I mean, it will be Bryce, but it's way too early to say that. I don't even think there was a clear-cut guy that you would look at going into last year, right? Like Will Johnson, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant. I think it's best if you don't have like one guy. I think there's a collection of guys, Rod Moore, Derek Moore, Jerome. No, sorry, we're not just ticking more names. I mean, Justice Haynes, Donovan McCulley. I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Sprague is on that list eventually, or Andrew Babalola. Right now, I'd actually even say that the two linebackers are up there, if not right there. I have that much faith in the linebacking core. ZT Jones at who_Zach Jones. Which rotational defensive lineman non-starter will have the biggest impact this season? I'll go with, if exterior, I'll go with Nom Nichols. Interior, it's hard to say who's going to be because I don't know who's all going to be starting, right? Like we know Rayshawn, and then is it going to be one of the two transfers? Is it going to be Trey Pierce? I'll go with Trey Pierce, even though he might be the starter. I think he's really ready to come in, but I'll also add the caveat of like Iwunnah because we've mentioned before, he's gotten so many mentions by Wink Martindale that it's hard to not look at it and say, yeah, like when the coach just proffers your name as much as he does, it's hard to think that he's not going to be like really, really good. BW at BW2623. No question, but can you scream cheating? Cracks me up every time I hear it. Thanks for the great podcast. My pleasure. Gary Moore at GDog4UM7. Any updates on Mikey Keene's injury status? As far as I know, he's healthy and good to go. But right, it was kind of like at the end of spring ball. It was kind of getting there. And right, they don't practice again until August. So I'm not really sure beyond that. Kalob711. Things are looking better and better for Michigan to sign Savion Hyder. Do you see him signing with us? And if so, will he contend for RB1 right away? God bless and thanks for doing what you do. I think I would have him penciled in as of right now. It's, obviously he hasn't committed yet, so can't say like, oh yeah, it's a for sure thing. And no, I don't think he'd be RB1 right away necessarily, because I think you've got, who knows, Justice Haynes, is he back another year? You're gonna have Jordan Marshall for sure another year. I think he would be a guy that's going to get into play pretty quickly, but I don't think you can pencil him in at RB1 right away. Some other guys are going to have had time on task, more game experience, and are good enough, right? Beyond good enough. But that doesn't mean he won't be in rotation. Edwin Simmons at Simmons_Edwin. Happy Thursday. I called for it yesterday. My brother in Christ, happy Friday to you. We missed Zuri the last 2 days. She's a celebrity. You hear that, Zuri? Well, you can see her on my Twitter. Is she even doing anything? She's just, okay, there she goes. She didn't even react to me. Oh, and now here she comes. All right. You're going to get your wish, and she's going to climb me. And now I can't see what your question is. What are you hearing about the number one running back for this weekend? Since Michigan can talk numbers, can we close the deal? I mean, I think he's going to go through his official visits. He's got Tennessee, who I think is the team to worry about the most next week. So I think he's got to go, do his official visit there, and we'll see what happens. But I think Michigan's and can get close to closing the deal, but we'll see. Great Bambino X at Colossal Cloud X. Have you spoken to Connor since the COI hearing? I know you can't share details, but if you have, what was the tone of the conversation? I have spoken to Connor, and I'm not going to even share what the tone is, because I think it's in everyone's best interest if we just leave it alone. But I will say, yes, I have spoken to Connor. Mike Matthews at Michigan Mike 7. When should we expect the hammer to be dropped now that the hearing is over? 30 to 90 days, according to Charlie Baker. Pistons Famo at Pistons Famo. Do you see Michigan dropping the bag on a Tristan Keys or Calvin Russell to get Bryce a top-tier wide receiver? Would you prefer they go to the transfer portal route for a wide receiver next year instead of high school recruit to maximize Bryce's time here? I do think that they'll try to do something with one of those two, probably more Calvin Russell than Tristan Keys. But yeah, I would rather see them go transfer portal route because I said this, I think, on Wednesday's episode. If you get a wide receiver from this class, by the time that they are like ready to go, Bryce is already in year, is in the last year 3. And they're just kind of like getting to that point where you're like, okay, this guy might really show out, right? Because sophomore year is usually when you start to see wide receivers start to really come on. So I'd rather see them go transfer portal if they can. Jacob Shavoria at Shavoria. If Michigan had a backbone and would defend itself, could they get all the upcoming punishments dismissed in court? Listen, that's something that I do believe that Michigan is defending itself. Now, that said, there are things that it has done that we railed against the suspension on Sherrone. I mean, part of that is the silence that came with it. Just throwing your head coach under the bus, the PR, all that kind of stuff. Timing with the Sansa Ono stuff, right? But generally, I do think that like Michigan is defending itself. I don't think that they're not that's something that's out in the ethos that's just not true. Now, I think that they could go to court and like really exonerate itself, but I don't think that they have the fortitude to do that. I think that Michigan wants this over with as soon as possible, essentially. He continues, when the NCAA no longer exists and we have a new governing system, what will Michigan do to prevent this unfair trial by public opinion from happening again? That I don't know. And that's kind of where I am a little concerned because I'm not sure that they care that much about the PR battle, right? And the Sherrone suspension is a big part of showing that they don't. Nunya Biz at U of M fan _for life with Moore pulling together a top 6 class last year and not a lot of time to do it. What do you think the recruiting expectations are now going to be once he has more time under his belt? Would less than a top 5 be considered a disappointment? No, I think that just having a top 10 class every year would be good, especially because it feels like he's trying to build a staff and a team that is going to develop, right? Like Michigan's they're not plug and play the same way that a lot of the SEC powers or Ohio State are. It is weirdly somewhat kind of a developmental program, but not like in the way that like a Rutgers or a Maryland are, right? Like, you would look at one of those schools kind of more as like, they're going to bring in a couple 4 stars, mostly 3 stars and try to develop guys. Michigan's kind of a higher end version of that. In large part, it's because of the style of the culture, the style of school, the admissions being annoying and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't think that they're going to contend for much higher than that. I'm not saying that there can't be a 1 year where they get the number 1 class, but I would say that being below top 15 would be a disappointment, but expect them and hope that they're in a top 10 most of the time. Finishing out segment 2, the Rican Raider at Hamstand 87. As much as you can tell and say, how does Michigan NIL work? I don't know, because I've still never got really into the weeds there. Like if you're a highly rated transfer recruit, do you get more? I mean, yeah. Also, I recommend Almost Home for the Northwestern game. I'm not letting this meetup idea go, by the way. That's all good. We'll deal with that as we get closer, and we'll gauge interest. But everyone, keep up. If you want to meet up on one of the road games, keep pouting the idea. Make sure I don't forget, and we'll get to that closer to the time. All right, we've got about 5-ish minutes left and way too many questions. We will get to the Blue Crew here momentarily. All right, if I answered these next question in about 20 seconds each, we can get to them all. So let's see what we can do. Ralph Wolf, would you rather be a 10-3 with a bowl win or 9-4 with a playoff loss? I think it depends on the context. It depends on the context of the rest of the season. Is one of those wins against Ohio State? Like who did they lose to? Who did they beat in the bowl game? I love the hypothetical, and it got me stumped when at the initial part of it, but then I started thinking about it. I'm like, did they beat Ohio State? Did they beat Michigan State? Who were the wins against? and like what's the context of the regular season in and of itself, right? Because in some respects, I think last season was kind of special just by the way it ended. I've never seen a more hilarious ending to a football season. So there you go. Wolverine Warrior asks, understanding culture and fit, what limits Michigan from getting a top 3 recruiting class with massive NIL and now revenue sharing? I mean, admissions is one, culture, and I mean, really it is the culture and fit. That's, I think, a big part of it. And I know that there's all these out there that are going to still accuse Michigan of cheating. Here's the funny thing, because they usually don't center on Stallions, they center on Harbaugh. Why is it that he felt like, in your mind, he could cheat in one way, but not in the recruiting aspect? It was like completely hands off there. Answer that. MBT at Maize and Blue True. With the new revenue and put in place, do you think the recruiting trail gets hotter than it's been, even with the most recent commits? God bless. God bless you as well. I don't know. We'll see. Ask me in a month. That's basically what I got there. Nick at Nick Krasinski. Going off the Big Ten stadium rankings, what are your top 5 stadiums you've visited outside of the Big Ten? Well, I haven't visited a lot. I haven't seen a lot of games outside of the Big Ten. So Rose Bowl, in context of the Rose Bowl, Cowboy Stadium, or whatever it's called, AT&T Stadium, was like just insane. I mean, like, if you're going to pick an NFL stadium, there you go. Hard Rock Stadium. I don't know. Because, like, again, it's usually bowl games. Otherwise, we're starting to talk like Camping World Stadium. I don't know. Matt Gompf. How big of a felon is Barton and Stickley at Buckeye Scoop? Let's do a whole episode on how they have derangement syndrome. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not going to go down the route of impugning them. They do their thing. Do I agree with it? No. They definitely have Michigan derangement syndrome. It seems to become more about Michigan and less about Ohio State. And the stuff about Michigan seems to, like I said before, it's the fever dream, right? And I know Michigan's got its own version of the fever dream. A lot would accuse me of it. I mean, by the virtue of a couple people I blocked in this, from this mailbag, there's Ohio State people who are just wildly affected just by me talking about Michigan for a living. A24 asks, how did Ohio State fans become the most delusional fan base in sports? Something in Columbus water. I don't actually think they're the most delusional in sports. I think that they are the ones who are trying. There's a lot of them, not all. Again, I don't want to paint with a wide brush here. A lot of them are soft. And I again, not all. There's a lot of them that I see. There's some that I follow myself, even on social media, because I find them enjoyable. And there's some that I haven't, I'm blocking anyone who's disrespectful and in general. And there's plenty that I think that are plenty engaging and respectful and fun and whatever. So I don't want to paint with that broad brush, but I think a lot of them they have an issue coping because they cannot believe, because they were fed that they were never going to lose to Michigan again. They cannot believe that they've lost to Michigan for the 4 straight years. So hence, it's not delusion. It's lack of ability to cope. And some treat it as an idol. And it's that's just what it is. We are not going to have time for everybody, and I apologize. Kalamazoo area, do you feel Lou Esposito's son would have been offered if his dad wasn't on our staff? I don't know, because I haven't seen his tape. Uncle T, not that Uncle T. What are your thoughts on Baker's absence from the hearing? Would that indicate a lesser punishment? Nah, I don't really think it matters. Freedom, why wasn't Connor Stalions employed by a football program? Because he's currently being investigated by the NCAA. Kim Bergsma, tell Coach Moore and Coach Campbell. Coach Campbell is back and willing to assist with the resurrection of Women's Football Academy, please. All right, we'll see what I can do. Clifford the dog, are Connor and Sherrone still friends? I don't know. And I think that's all we got the time for. So I apologize to those we didn't get to. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will be back very soon. Peace.